I stood on my parents' porch with 2 children behind me and a bag at my feet and knocked on that door the way I had knocked on it 1,000 times before. My mother's house, my father's door, the same porch I had run across as a child, the same steps I had sat on as a teenager, the same doorbell I had rung every single holiday for 31 years. My father opened it. He looked at me. He looked at my children. Then he slowly, quietly closed it. My brother appeared briefly in the hallway behind him, just long enough to shrug and say there really was no space. You know how it is. And then he was gone too. My sister had already said her piece on the phone. I stood on that porch for a moment. I did not cry, though the feeling was right there, pressing against everything. My daughter Ria was 7 years old, and she had her hand in mine, and she was completely silent, which was unusual for her, which told me she understood more than I wanted her to. My son Dev was 5, and he had both arms around my waist from behind, the way he always did when something felt wrong, even if he couldn't name it. I picked up the bag. I walked back down the porch steps. I buckled both children into the backseat of my car. And then I sat in the driver's seat for a long moment with both hands on the steering wheel, and I made myself one promise. 3 words, whispered to no one, to the windshield, to whatever version of myself was still paying attention. Watch what happens. This is what happened. My name is Nadia. 20 months ago, I had what most people would have called a stable life. Not a remarkable one, not the kind you photograph and share with a caption about gratitude. Just stable, reliable. Ordinary in the ways that ordinary can feel like enough until it isn't. I had a house in a decent neighborhood, a car with a dent on the rear bumper I kept meaning to get repaired, and 2 children who were loud and specific and growing so fast that every time I looked at them, I had to recalibrate. Ria was 7. Serious in the way that some children are serious, cautious, the kind of kid who asks questions before she commits to anything. She had been reading chapter books since she was 5, and she had strong opinions about everything, including which brand of orange juice was acceptable, which was only one brand, and she was not flexible on this. Dev was 5. Completely the opposite. Loud, fearless, convinced that most rules were suggestions, that most surfaces were climbable, and that most situations would work out fine if you just kept moving forward. He had not yet been proven wrong often enough to doubt this. I also had Rohan. We had been married for 9 years. 9 years is long enough to know someone's habits better than your own. Long enough to finish their sentences without thinking. Long enough to stop noticing what you have gradually, quietly given up. He was not a cruel man. Cruel would have been easier to leave. Cruel is obvious, documented, explainable. Rohan was charming and inconsistent, and profoundly reluctant to be held responsible for anything that went wrong. He had a gift for making you feel, without ever raising his voice or saying anything that could be quoted back later, that every difficulty was somehow the logical result of something you had done or not done. I had a part-time position as an accounts coordinator at a mid-sized company downtown. Not glamorous. Steady. I managed the house, the children's schedules, the school runs, the doctor appointments, the grocery planning, the birthday logistics, the nighttime routines, the homework, the forms, the fees, the follow-up emails to teachers, the weekend activities. Rohan managed his career, which he treated with the singular devotion most people reserve for things they actually love. The cracks had been visible for years. I had been filling them so consistently I had almost forgotten what the original surface looked like. I found out about the other woman, not through any dramatic confrontation, not through anything cinematic or story-worthy. I found out because he left his phone on the kitchen counter while he went to answer the door, and a message appeared on the screen that was impossible to misread. 2 lines. That was all. 2 lines and 9 years rearranged themselves into a shape I did not recognize. I will not describe what the weeks after that looked like in any detail. There are parts of this story that are not for sharing, that belong to me alone, that existed in private and will stay there. What I will tell you is that we tried briefly, inadequately, to determine whether there was anything salvageable. There was not. Or rather, there was, but the version of me that would have accepted what was being offered was a version I no longer was. I filed for divorce in the spring. What I had not anticipated, what I failed entirely to see coming, was what would happen when I called my family. I come from a family that presents itself as close. Sunday dinners, group messages on holidays, parents who remembered birthdays, that kind of close. The kind that can look like closeness from certain angles and reveal itself as something more conditional only when you actually need something from it. My parents, Leela and Shersh, had been married for 34 years and had 3 children. My brother Vikrant was 30, unmarried, still living in their house, occupying the largest bedroom on the upper floor, and a philosophy toward contribution that was, I will be diplomatic, still developing. My sister Pooja was 27, newly married, 14 months into a relationship she had somehow converted into a comprehensive worldview about what made other people's marriages work or fail. I called my mother first. I told her what had happened. I told her I had filed. I told her I did not know yet what the custody arrangement would look like, that the house situation was being handled by a lawyer, that it would take time. I asked if I could bring the children and stay for a few weeks, just until things were less uncertain, just breathing room. There was a pause on the phone. The particular kind of pause that contains an entire paragraph of what someone has already decided before they speak. Nadia, my mother said, you know how it is here. We do not really have the space right now. I want you to understand the geography of my parents' house. 4 bedrooms, my parents in 1, Vikrant in 1, 2 unused. A finished room in the lower level with a sofa bed and a separate bathroom where I had slept every single Diwali when celebrations ran late. There was space. There was considerably more than enough space. Mama, I said carefully, I have 2 children. I am asking for a few weeks. You need to think about this more carefully, she said. Divorce is serious. Rohan provides for you. These things happen in every marriage. You work through them. He had done what he had done. I had the evidence. I had not misread anything, misinterpreted anything, overreacted to anything. And yet I was being asked to reconsider. I drove over the next morning. I pulled into the driveway I had pulled into hundreds of times. I walked up the steps I had walked up as a child. I knocked on the door with both children behind me and a bag at my feet. My father answered. Shirsh is not a cold man by nature. But he stood in the doorway and his face did something I had never seen it do before, something complicated and prepared, like he had been briefed and had rehearsed his response and was now performing it. Your mother and I spoke, he said. We do not think it is a good idea, you staying here right now. Papa. My voice came out smaller than I intended. I have nowhere to go. The house is in legal dispute. The lawyer says it could take months. You could go back, he said. Try again. Ria was standing directly behind me, 7 years old. She had not said a word since we pulled into the driveway. I felt her hand find mine, and I held it. I am not going back, I said. I am asking you for help. I am your daughter, and I am asking you for help. He looked at me. He looked at the children behind me. He looked somewhere past all of us. Then he stepped back slightly and said he was sorry, that they just could not do it right now, and he began to close the door. Vikrant appeared in the hallway behind him just before it closed, just long enough to lean around my father's shoulder with an expression I will not describe in detail because it does not deserve the description. He said there really was no space. He said, you know how it is. He had an entire floor to himself. He had lived there rent-free for 3 years. I stood on that porch and I did not fall apart. The need to was enormous. The feeling was right there against the back of my eyes. But Ria was holding my hand and Dev had both arms around my waist from behind and I was not going to collapse in front of them. Okay, I said. Just that word. Just okay. And then Pooja appeared. Of course. She materialized in the hallway with her arms folded and her head at the particular angle she adopted when she was about to say something she believed was both honest and helpful. Honestly, Nadia, she said, I think you are being a little reckless. Rohan is not a bad person. People make mistakes. You have 2 children to think about. Their stability should matter more than your feelings right now. Their stability. As if I had not been the architect of every piece of that stability for every day of their lives. As if I had not been the one at every school pickup, every fever, every nightmare, every ordinary Wednesday that needed managing. As if stability had not been something I had been building entirely alone for years while Rohan managed his career and his other life simultaneously. Thank you for your thoughts, I said. My voice was very even. Pooja shrugged. Like I was being difficult. I picked up the bag. I buckled both children into the back seat. I got in the driver's seat. I put both hands on the steering wheel. And I whispered 3 words to no one in particular. Watch what happens. We spent the first night in a hotel 40 minutes outside the city. It cost more than I wanted it to cost, but it was clean and it had 2 beds and the children thought it was an adventure, which was the most useful thing they could have thought. Ria helped me get Dev settled. Dev announced he wanted to sleep diagonally across both beds, which was declined. Ria found a cartoon on the television and watched it with the specific focused attention she gave to things she had decided mattered. I laughed once, briefly, at something Dev said before falling asleep. It was real laughter. Small, sudden, catching me off guard. I had not laughed in what felt like a very long time. After they were asleep, I lay in the dark and I made myself think clearly. Not about what I had lost, about what I had. A part-time job I was good at and could probably expand if I asked. A work history that was solid. A lawyer who had agreed to a payment arrangement. 2 children who were currently sleeping in a hotel room and who were healthy and fed and safe. and 3 words I had just made myself. I am going to skip the harder middle section, not because it did not happen, but because this story is not really about suffering. There was plenty of suffering. There were weeks in that hotel that extended into 6 weeks. There were nights I ate very little because I had put everything toward the children and was not going to tell anyone that. There were evenings I sat in the bathroom after Dev and Rhea were asleep and let myself feel the full size of what had happened. Then I washed my face and went back to being their mother. What I want to tell you about is what I built instead. My manager at work, a woman named Sharon, had been watching me come in early and stay late for several weeks without comment. One afternoon, she came to my desk and asked me directly whether I was going through something difficult. I told her yes. She did not offer sympathy. She offered something more useful: full-time hours, proper benefits, starting the following month. I said yes before she finished the sentence. I found a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was not fancy but was safe and was close to both children's school. The building was older. The kitchen had exactly 2 functioning cabinet hinges out of what should have been 8. The bathroom tiles were a color that had not been fashionable in any decade I was aware of. But it was ours. I hung curtains the first weekend we moved in. Rhea and I argued briefly but productively about the color. Dev contributed opinions that were enthusiastic and not relevant. We hung them anyway. I stepped back and looked at the window and I thought, yes, this is the beginning. The divorce took 9 months. Rohan had a better lawyer initially, and the custody arrangement he proposed was, I will be restrained about this, aspirationally inconsistent with his actual level of presence in the children's lives up to that point. But a parent who has not been doing the daily work does not have the documentation to support a custody claim that requires them to have done it. I had 9 years of school records and medical files and pickup logs and teacher communications, all of which told the same story with the consistency only reality can produce. I received primary custody. Rohan received alternating weekends and a portion of the school holidays. He also owed retroactive support that his legal team worked creatively to minimize. Their creativity was insufficient. Before I tell you how my family responded, and they did respond, all of them, eventually, I want to pause here for a moment. If you are watching this and you are somewhere in the middle of what I just described, the hotel nights, the crackers for dinner, the bathroom floor after bedtime, the not knowing, please like this video. Not because I need the number, because I want you to feel that someone on the other side of a screen has been exactly where you are and is telling you with complete honesty that it changes. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like this one, stories about ordinary people who built something real out of very little, and drop a comment and tell me. When the people who were supposed to show up didn't, who actually did, I read every one. Now let me tell you about my family. My mother called me when the settlement became known. Our city is not enormous, and news about financial settlements and divorces travels, as news tends to do, to the people most interested in it. We are so glad things worked out, she said. Her tone was warm, easy, as though she had been following closely the entire time, cheering from some nearby position I had simply not noticed. Are you? I said. It was not quite a question. Nadia, you have to understand. We were worried you were moving too quickly. I had 2 children and a bag, I said. I was not moving quickly. I was asking for help. She shifted into the mode she had when she felt a conversation going in a direction she had not planned for. The sighing. The suggestion that I was being oversensitive. The reframing of the closed door as concern rather than refusal. I let her talk. I did not argue. When she finished, I told her I needed more time and I would be in touch when I was ready. I have not rushed that timeline. Pooja reached out about 3 months after the settlement. A long message. Several paragraphs. She had been reflecting, she said. She hoped we could reconnect. She had said some things that came out wrong, and she hoped I understood where she had been coming from. I read it twice. I thought about the porch. I thought about their stability mattering more than your feelings. Said with her arms folded and her head tilted, with the confidence of someone who had never once been the person standing outside a closed door with 2 children and a bag. I wrote back something brief and not unkind. I told her I appreciated her message. I told her I needed more time. I told her that when I was ready, I would reach out. She has sent follow-up messages since then. I read them. I take my time. Vikrant has not reached out. That is its own kind of answer. My father sent a card at one of the children's birthdays. It had his handwriting on it. I put it where the children could see it because it is their grandfather's handwriting, and that is separate from everything else. 8 months after the settlement, Sharon recommended me for a senior coordinator role that had opened in the department. It came with a salary figure that made me sit very still for a moment when I saw it. Not because the number was extraordinary. It wasn't. But because it was mine. Earned by showing up, by being competent, by doing the work. Nobody's exception. Nobody's grace. Just mine. I found a 3-bedroom apartment in the same school area. Newer. brighter. All the cabinet hinges functioned. Rhea got her own room and immediately organized it with a precision that impressed and slightly unsettled me. Dev got his own room and converted half of it into what he described as a headquarters, the function of which was never made entirely clear. I bought curtains for the new place without arguing with anyone. I hung them myself. I stood back and looked at the window and felt something I recognized and had missed. There is a particular kind of justice that does not come with a confrontation scene. It does not arrive with a dramatic moment where you watch someone realize exactly how wrong they were, where you see the expression on their face shift and know that they know now. It is quieter than that. It accumulates. It looks like a lease in your own name. It looks like a savings account with a balance that grows every month. It looks like a 7-year-old who sets her own alarm and makes her own packed lunch and reads until 10 minutes past the agreed bedtime and thinks you do not know. It looks like a 5-year-old who tells everyone at his new school that his mom is the one who fixes things, said with the simple certainty of someone for whom this is just an obvious fact about the world. Rohan moved in with the person he had been seeing. That lasted approximately a year from what I have heard through various channels. He currently rents a flat across the city. He has the children on his weekends, and to his credit, he shows up for those. I do not speak to him unless the topic is the children. We communicate by message. It is functional. I have stopped expecting an apology from my parents or my siblings. Not because I have decided they do not owe me one. They do. But because I have learned something that I wish someone had told me earlier, waiting for an apology is a form of staying. And I am not interested in staying anywhere I had to beg to be allowed into. Last term, Ria's school held a presentation evening where students shared independent research projects. I arrived early, found her display board, and stood in front of it. She had researched the science and psychology of resilience. The actual research, the studies, the patterns, presented clearly and in her own words with the thoroughness she brought to everything she decided was worth doing. The board was hand-lettered, organized, specific. At the bottom, in writing slightly smaller than the rest, she had added a section marked as her own observation, not sourced. It said, "Resilient people do not wait to be rescued. They decide what to do next." She was standing beside the board when I walked up. Watching me read it with that quiet, measuring look she had developed at some point in the last 20 months, a look that was new or newly visible to me, the look of someone who has been paying attention to things and drawing her own conclusions. "I added that part myself," she said. "It is not from any of the research." I looked at her. 8 years old. Daughter of mine. "I know," I said. "It shows." She nodded, satisfied. "I think it is the truest part," she said. Then she went to answer a question from another parent about her methodology. I stood by the display board for a moment longer. I thought about a porch and a bag and 3 words. I thought about a hotel room and 6 weeks and crackers and bathroom floors and curtains and cabinet hinges and a salary figure that had made me sit still. I thought about how far a person can get in 20 months if they just decide what to do next. I do not tell this story because I want your sympathy. I have a functioning home and a career I have earned and 2 children who are wildly, specifically, loudly themselves, and I am more than fine. I tell it because I know there are women listening right now who are standing at some version of that door, who have a bag and children and a family that is closing itself against them, who are being told in various ways, by various people, that there is no room. The people who told me there was no room are living the same lives today they were living 20 months ago. Same house, same routines, same everything. While I built something entirely new, from a hotel room and a bag and 3 words whispered to a windshield, there is no outcome sweeter than that. None. If someone ever told you there was no space for you, what did you do with that? Tell me in the comments. Drop a like if this story gave you even a small piece of something you needed today. Subscribe to this channel if you want to be here for the next story. I share new ones every week and you do not want to miss what is coming. Hit the bell so you are notified. And wherever you are watching from right now, thank you for spending your time here. The people who say there is no room for you are usually just afraid of what you will build once you find your own. I will see you next time.